Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the DC Pledge Initiative Open House for Feeder 15174. I am going to go over a few housekeeping rules for you right before we get into the presentation. Once again, welcome to our virtual public meeting. We just want to make sure that you're aware that we have the information readily available for you, and we have a few controls for you to participate virtually with. This is an open meeting and required by DC Code, so the meeting is being recorded, so we do want to let you know that the meeting is being recorded. Also, this video is, the audio and video is showing on the YouTube channel. We'll have that up within 7 days. And of course, this meeting is being streamed on our Facebook page as well. So please share with a friend this information that we're about to present to you. And if you don't want to have your voice recorded, we do ask that you use our Q&A chat that we have available for you. And if you need technical support, of course, during this meeting, you can call 202-997-8354. Using our WebEx audio and video just for purposes to bring to your attention, everyone is on mute that enters the meeting. You can unmute yourself. You cannot unmute yourself. We will unmute you during the Q&A portion of this presentation. So at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask your questions. And then also, if you want to speak, you'll need to raise your hand. And I'll give it to you, the raise your hand feature coming up shortly. So once again, everyone is on mute, and you can unmute yourself when we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting. Also, I just want to make you aware that we do have closed captions that is available with this WebEx streaming platform, so you will be able to see all of our words on the screen. Using the WebEx application, you can click the 3 dots in the corner, that icon, to scroll down and select closed captions if it's not auto-populating at this time. And your video camera, again, is going to be off by default, and you will be able to share a video of this presentation later in the streaming on Facebook. For the Q&A portion of the program, if you have questions during the presentation, we do ask that you type your questions in the chat. Again, it says those 3 dots that you can click, that icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the WebEx window. You can select Q&A, and then you can type your questions there. If you want to go ahead and put your questions out there, and we'll address them when we get to the Q&A section. If you're dialing in by phone, dial *3 to use the hand raise function, and that's going to indicate to the project team that you need to raise your hand and you want to verbally speak during the Q&A portion of this meeting. Just to reiterate, if you want to raise your hand, if you're dialing in on your phone, you can use *3, and if you're on your computer, you use Control-Shift-R to raise your hand. All right, once again, thank you for joining us for our virtual meeting for Feeder 15174, and I'm going to turn it over to the project team.
Thank you, Honora. Just to quickly go through the agenda, we'll start this evening's meeting with a quick introductory video, and then the team from Pepco will go over the DC Plug project background. Then you'll see some examples of the existing overhead models, current and then after the construction. And then you'll get a project status update and timeline, project scope and limits, MOT plan, what it will look like during construction. Then you'll see our communication strategy and the contact information that you should also have on the flyer that you received to join this evening's meeting.
The District of Columbia has experienced more violent storms in recent years, resulting in extensive power outages. For this reason, the District and Pepco are working to reduce power outages by moving many of the overhead power lines underground to improve the infrastructure and enhance resiliency. Neighborhoods affected by construction will be notified well in advance of the project start date. This will include the posting of no parking signs, Construction will begin with the coordination of streets and sidewalks impacted in your neighborhood. Signs will be posted, and flaggers will direct vehicles and pedestrians around construction crews. Before any digging begins, other existing utility lines that may be in the path of construction will be carefully identified and marked in the field. In some cases, small plants, trees, and grass will need to be removed from public spaces to allow for digging and placement of new underground equipment. But we will do our best to retain as much vegetation as possible. Any public property disturbed by this work will be restored to its original condition. Construction workers will use asphalt saws to cut the pavement. A backhoe will dig a trench for the placement of the distribution line. Periodically along the main primary line, manholes and tap holes will be required to house equipment and to provide access for inspections and repairs. The backhoe will also be utilized in these cases to excavate for these structures. In order to meet jurisdictional safety requirements, shoring will be provided in the trench to ensure stability. Pepco uses either fiberglass or plastic PVC conduit to protect underground power lines. Concrete will be poured into the trench to encase and secure the conduit, and steel plates will be placed over the trench temporarily to make the road usable to vehicle traffic. After the concrete is set, the steel plates will be removed and the trench will be repaved in sections. Transformers, switches, and other ancillary equipment will be set in place. Equipment such as transformers and switches will be installed either in the roadway or the sidewalk, depending on space availability. Underground cable will be installed. Landscaping will be restored as needed and roads paved. Overhead primary electric wires will be removed from poles, but secondary service and communication lines will remain. Finally, the new underground power lines will be energized. While electricity will remain on throughout the project, there will be a short scheduled outage needed to switch from the overhead lines to the new underground system. We appreciate your patience while the District and Pepco improve the future of electrical service for the District of Columbia residents.
And now I'll pass it to Pepco engineer Samantha McHugh to go over some of the background on the DC Plug program.
Evening, everyone. My name's Samantha. Just to give a little background on DC Plug, DC Plug is a reliability and resiliency program that is aiming to underground 20 of DC's most vulnerable feeders. By undergrounding these feeders, the resiliency of each feeder will increase and the number of power outages during severe storms and other events will decrease. As you can see from the timeline shown on the slide, DC Plug has been going since 2012. We've been working together with the district and DDOT to come up with a solution to combat the increased power outages we were seeing with severe storms. The total project is estimated to be around $500 million, with Pepco contributing $250 million, the district contributing $187.5 million, and DDOT contributing the rest. Next slide, please. As you can see from this animation that we're showing, this is the existing overhead system. As the tree falls on the primary main line, all of the customers are impacted and a large power outage is resulted from this. Next slide, please. This is the proposed underground plan. So after DC Plug is finished their work, the big difference here is the main line is now undergrounded, and when this tree falls, the number of customers impacted is no longer the same as it was previously. As you can see in another part of the picture, the tree is still going to fall on the secondary main line, but it is impacting a significantly less number of customers and buildings. Overall, the big takeaway here is that by undergrounding the main line, the number of outages in the area is significantly decreased. I'm going to pass it off to Caesar to talk about some of the timelines.
Thank you, Samantha. Good evening, everybody. My name is Cesar Barreto. I'm with the District Department of Transportation under the Citywide Engineering and Special Projects Division, overseeing the DC Plug from the DC government side. Some of the current status and timelines for the feeder 15174 designs are as follows. We have a project kickoff that occurred on May 2023, followed by a 30% design submission on November 2023, and a 65% 65% intermittent submission in March 2023. We have joined several meetings in the ANC. The last one was November 2022, and we have met with the council member on December 2024. We're planning on meeting with the council member on December 2024. Currently, we're on this open house public meeting, and we are expecting we finalize our 100% design on August 2024, and we're expecting a final submission of the designs on October 2024. Next slide. As part of the construction timeline, we are expecting to start construction for the civil work, as in the electrical structures, installation of electrical structures on summer 2025, followed by completing this on winter 2026. The electrical construction completion will be on winter 2027, and then anticipated to be energized on winter 2027 as well. As part of the project scope of work that occurs, as you saw in the video or hear it in the video, we manage the erosion and sediment control. We do installation of dump banks, electrical manholes, tap holes, and transformer enclosures during the civil construction, of course. And after that, we do roadway restorations, pavement marking restorations, and the electrical phase of the work will continue following the civil construction work. As you can see some of these images, we got 3 images on the screen. On the top right side, you have during construction of the electrical conduit where we already excavated and we are installing the electrical conduit. On the bottom side, you see an installation of a tap hole or electrical structure. And on the bottom left side, you see a finalized product, which is a concrete piece, and you only see the panel on the sidewalk of the electrical structure. Next slide. We're going to share as part of the project scope, we would like to share some finishing products of the images. On the top left corner, we see a transformer enclosure, which is a rectangular box located mostly on the green section or the grass section or the sidewalk section. Also, in the sidewalk sometimes or in the street, we can have those in the sidewalk or the streets. We also have a switch manhole on the top right imagery on the sidewalk. That's the finished product. That's what you see. You only see a manhole cover on the top. And then also have on the bottom right side, we have a tap hole, which is more of a square box on the greenery area. All this work happens within the public space. No private property is impacted. Next slide. In this slide, we have an aerial image or a map figure of imagery of DC, but more specifically to the Douglas, Shirley, and Garfield Heights section, where it is highlighted the limits of work or the boundaries of our work. Locations include Alabama Avenue. Some of the roads included in the boundaries are Alabama Avenue, Stanton Road, Savannah Street, 23rd Street, just to name a few, and 25th Street as well. Next slide. Similar to our design, these imageries are from the top view on how the work is going to be performing. These are some examples on how it looks for the proposed conduits and manholes. What you see in this imagery is a roadway and a blue line within that roadway showing where the electrical conduit might be proposed installed. And then we see some rectangular squares and boxes where identifies where we have proposed installation of transformer enclosures or tap holes or manholes for the proposed work within the public space. Next slide, so we can show another imagery. This one is an example of 25th. This is an example on Alabama Avenue and Knox Place, along with several intersections. Next slide. This image shows the same example for Savannah Street and Recrest and 22nd Street as well, 21st Street as well. Next slide. As part of maintenance of traffic during construction, we will maintain accessibility for residents and businesses. Parking impacts will be alerted or be advised. We will have an advance notice of minimum 72 hours. I would like to point out that we will be joining ANC meetings and as much as possible with our public outreach stream on the construction side to provide information and feedback. Even though we have a 72-hour advance notice for emergency no parkings, we will also try to notify ahead of time as well with our public outreach coordinators for the projects. Uh, we also try to provide safe accommodations for pedestrian and bicycles during the construction. And as I mentioned, the public outreach team will coordinate with residents and other stakeholders for the construction. Next slide. Typical maintenance of, when it comes to maintenance of traffic, usually we have some examples that we would like to provide during the construction phase. This imagery provides an example where we have the work zone on the left side of the road. And we have space for the bike. We maintain a 5-foot bike lane. If we have bike lanes, we have 11-foot travel lanes, one for each way, and then another bike lane on the other side. That's one of the examples. We will modify it as needed as well. Next slide. We also have the example of working a work zone on the right side, and then maintaining 2 travel lanes, one for each side, and then also maintaining parking on the left side. Another example for the work zone being in the middle of the street, where we maintain travel lanes on both sides of that work zone, and then maintain also the parking space on one side of the road. Last but not least, and the more invasive, we maintain both travel lanes, but we have a bigger work zone for 14 feet due to transferring from one lane to the other. And I'll hand it over to Raisha.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Okay, so for feeder 15174, right now we're in the design phase. So as far as community outreach and engagement, we have already notified the council member's office, met with the ANCs to provide a high-level overview. And tonight we're meeting with you all regarding our virtual open house. So next up, what we have planned as far as outreach engagement goes, our outreach coordinators will meet with the residents that will have transformer enclosures or tap holes in the public space near their homes. Then after that, we'll end the design phase of outreach with a one-page summary. Once we get into the construction phase, we start to implement the education plan. And this is where we start to notify the residents 30 days prior to construction, again at 15 days prior to construction, and then at 7 days prior to construction. At that point, like Caesar said, you will see 72-hour notices posted 72 hours prior to us, at least 72 hours prior to us being out of there. And that's when you know, okay, we're really, really coming. We do send out resident letters as needed. We do traffic advisories whenever there's a change in the traffic pattern or any parking issues or sidewalk closures. We also do scheduled distribution. So we send out the schedule when we get them from the contractor to anybody that joins our email list. We encourage you guys to go to our website. That's dcpluginfo.com and join our list. Just click on Ward 8 feeders and click on 15174, join the list. And once you join the list, we'll add you to our email list and you'll get all this information via email. We do, like Caesar said, attend the ANC meetings regularly, and all this is done by our dedicated outreach team. Once we get into the electrical phase, it's a lot less invasive, but we still do a lot of outreach. We do have phone calls that we give out to those residents who may be losing any type of power, and then we do still attend the ANC meetings regularly, and they will also receive a 72-hour door-to-door notice. One last thing is that we do have a 24-hour hotline if you guys have any questions. That's 844-758-4146. And if you'd like to email us, please email us at questions@dcpluginfo.com. I'll pass it on to Peyton.
Great. Thank you, Raisha. So real quickly, that's essentially the end of the presentation. We're getting into the Q&A period. I did just want to point out for everybody, if you wouldn't mind taking the Title VI summary survey that we have, it's really helpful for us as we continue to have these meetings. As Raisha said, there will be some more meetings that we're having relating to this feeder, especially as we approach construction and about the next year or so. So the information you provide in that survey really helps us kind of decide how best to hold these meetings and reach the community. So if you're calling in, the website you can use to take that survey is http tinyurl.com/title-vi-survey. Again, it's tinyurl.com/title-vi-survey. If you wouldn't mind, it's only about a minute to take that survey. It really helps us in collecting your feedback and better understanding how to reach you. And now it's just time for the Q&A. I see we have a few call-in users, so if you want to raise your hand and ask any questions to the team, you would press *3. We can see that, and we can request for you to be unmuted once you do that. I'll give it a few minutes if you are... Okay, I have a hand raised. Great. You should hear a beep, and it will ask you to accept. And then again, if you're on the computer, you can either send a question via the Q&A, raise your hand, or via the chat, and we'll make sure that we address it. And I'm sorry, I didn't get you unmuted. If you could press *3 again, I don't know if you were able to accept the unmute request. It should, there we go. Okay, we should be able to hear you now.
Yes, I didn't get quite the hotline number the young lady was saying.
Absolutely.
Just in case you.
So the number is, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
The phone number is 1-844-758-4146. So if you have any questions throughout the project, anything that comes up that you can feel free to reach out there, or once construction starts, 24-hour hotline.
Just one more question.
Mm-hmm.
When you start the project, will the residents have their electricity?
Great question. Yeah, so during construction, you won't have any power outages. There's one scheduled power outage at the end of the construction after the electrical phase. And it's about 4 hours of no power, and it will be coordinated with you beforehand.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for joining. I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. If you have any other question, just press *3 again, and we can get you back off. Again, right now I don't see any other questions. If anybody has a question, feel free to send it in the chat or press *3 to unmute yourself, and we'll be happy to address the question. Give it just another minute or so just to see if anybody else comes up with anything. And I guess just some high level, kind of typical frequently asked questions that we get while I give it another few seconds. You'll start seeing civil construction starting around summer 2025 at the end of the project. After construction will be completed in winter 2026, The electrical phase is anticipated to be done about a year after that in winter 2027. Once everything's done, you'll have that one small outage sometime during winter 2027, where the power switch from above ground to below ground. After that, just to be clear, there will still be some power lines or running to the home, as well as communication lines on those poles. The poles will remain on site, and I'm trying to think of any other typical questions that we get, but your question, ma'am, was a great one relating to the power. I see your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you again, and we should be able to hear you. We should be able to hear you now, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to ask one more question. With this new project, have have around the city have another project similar to what you are going to start over here in Ward 8? Have any other projects in the other around the wards have been done? Was it effective, or this is the first?
No, I think, and somebody can correct me on the exact number, I believe there are 4 or 5 that have been completed. In terms of speaking to how effective it is, I personally think I can give you a decent answer to that. Right in front of my home, this project was actually done. I have a transformer enclosure right in front of my home, right by Rock Creek Park. So trees are falling quite often. And ever since it's been completed, I haven't had any outages. I've had a tree fall across the lines in my yard, and I've maintained power. So that's the goal of the project. This project I'll defer to the team. I'm blanking on which wards right now, but 5 of the wards. And if somebody can speak to how many have been done and whatnot,
Hey, Paige, Parker. Yeah, 2 have been, or 3 have been completed. 1 in Ward 4. Actually, I think 2 in Ward 4, and then 1 in Ward, I believe it's Ward 7. I don't have any recent data on the reliability improvements. I think we're still collecting that as we go through a few seasons from it being installed. And we also have one other in the area, feeder 15171, which comes out of the same substation as this feeder. So there are several feeders that we're doing this in Ward 8. I think.
Okay.
The questions.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a great question. Do you have any follow-up?
No. I was just gonna. Will it be the whole entire ward for this new project? Because Ward 8 is a large ward. It's just specific streets of Alabama, Jasper Place.
Yeah, there's a few. If you look on the map on the flyer that you would have received, that's the for this specific feeder, that's the outline of what will be undergrounded here. There's a few projects happening in Ward 8, but not the entirety of the ward. It's the areas that have been identified as high risk for fallen trees and a high number of outages since they started the study in 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one feeder doesn't cover an entire ward. There could be, 40 to 50 feeders that cover the entire Ward 8. So this feeder is only covering, a certain amount.
Okay, certain location. Okay, thank you.
Of course, thank you for joining. I'm gonna lower your hand, ma'am. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to raise it. I'll give it about another 20 or 30 seconds to make sure nobody else has any questions. But I want to go ahead and thank you all for joining tonight's meeting. Again, if you want to follow along with any project updates, please use the project website. That's dcpluginfo.com. You can email us at questions@dcpluginfo.com, or you can use the call number at 1-844-758-4146. And all of this should be found on your flyer that you received for this meeting as well. But again, I really appreciate you all for joining and taking the time to learn about this project tonight. I want to wish you all a lovely evening and a great weekend as we approach. Have a good one.